Hello everyone, welcome. So today we might be doing things a little bit different. We're not, unlike I joked on Twitter, we're not going to be streaming chess, but I did have to tear myself away from watching the Fabiano Caruana Alireza Firuza game, which was quite exciting. But I will catch up with the game later. So in the meanwhile, let's get back to where we were, and let's see where we are. All right, so as I said, I want to wrap up the this side of the project a little bit, and then maybe figure out how to change the EOS project. So actually, the last week we had a big paper submission as well, that was done. That's now done. Hopefully, this was a resubmission after review. So hopefully, the journal and the editors and the reviewers will all be very happy now with the changes we made. And we will have good news on that soon. But in the meanwhile, that also means that I have a little bit more time for something else like EOS and figuring out how ARGs are distributed. All right, so at the end of the last stream, we were looking at the RGI files. So first of all, one thing I did, which I normally try to avoid doing too much work between streams, but one thing we saw is that as we were processing, there were both these TXT and these JSON files, and we actually spent a little bit of time looking at the outputs of RGI. So RGI is the tool from from the CARD database, or from the same group that develops the CARD database that's shipped with CARD, to annotate genes to CARD. And we saw that it outputs this TXT file and it outputs this JSON file. And then I left this running. So I had left Jug running and running RGI on all of these. All of these, so I'm just gonna run it again. So something here is going wrong. Cannot concat empty list. All right, let's debug that in a second. It's actually pretty good. Let's debug. I'm just gonna. Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, let's debug that in a second. Actually, So by the way, I'm running Jug, and maybe I've been running Jug for this project quite extensively. This is a tool I use very, very extensively. I use it basically every day, and one of the things. So one of the things it does by default is when you run Jug execute and it runs into here. So it's going to run, and then if there's a problem, so there's Siemens exception, it's going to stop, right? And that's pretty okay. But there's a flag called keep going. This is the same as make uses if I'm not wrong, and when you say keep going, then it keeps going. So if one task fails with an error such as this one, it will keep going to the next one. And apparently, many tasks are failing with these Boolean string issues or some empty list stuff. So it's okay, it just keeps going. And you can see now it's running. I'm just gonna run top. Yeah, so here it's running prodigal. So prodigal so it's running as usual. When I do it on the stream, it's also running OBS, and then runs Prodigal and RGI. All right. And let me see if any, yeah, okay. And so we said so as we saw last week, so it outputs these JSON files and it outputs these TXT files. And as we saw last week, the JSON file is a more annotated version of the same information. I mean, so obviously it's a completely different format, but if we think just about what kind of information is present in both, so if we take, if we just consider JSON, so let's see. So if we just consider what kind of information is present in both, then it's more or less the same information, except that the JSON version expands by including some of the meta information about about the actual gene. So actually, let me just show you one. Yeah, so we have more or less the same information, except here it enhances this with this so this is, for example, Penem, and you know, Penems are a class of unsaturated beta-lactam antibiotics, etc. So this can be quite useful, especially you know, if there was a you know, probably some tools around this. I think, for example, maybe this might be what's underlying the RGI web interface. So this is quite nice. The problem was that when I left this running, so as I have now, so as you see, there's a lot of jugs, a lot of jug processes running, and sorry, I'm a little bit slow. And this is it. I left this running, and the JSON actually has a lot of data. So it has so it's a much larger file. And so I left this running on my laptop, and then in the evening, the laptop had effectively run out of disk space, and I started getting all sorts of weird errors on all sorts of weird stuff. So in particular, things like I use SyncThing, and I use Dropbox for different usages, and SyncThing was not updating, was not syncing. Dropbox was also not updating, and I realized that I had run out of disk space, and effectively all of these JSONs had basically destroyed my took over all my disk space. So I ended up removing all the JSON files forcibly by just doing RM of all of the JSON files. So now what I'm going to do is so I did that very ad hoc, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the code here that actually deletes the JSON files. Or actually, I don't even need to delete the JSON files. I am going to simply not copy the JSON files to the output. And since we're at it, we might as well also save a little bit more disk space by compressing the TXT files. actually, let's not do that. Let's just keep. The reason why I'm not doing that is because I would have to go back and. So let's for now not do that part. All right. Yeah. So let's not keep the JSON files. And now. All right, let's just delete the existing ones. This is right. This is a 5G of space is okay, but with the JSON files, it was taking hundreds of Gs, and I have a pretty decent disk space usage is always at 90. It's always between it's always at 90% plus or minus 2. So that's just a constant of the universe that basically however big your disk is, you will always be using 91% of it. So right now this is on the high side. I guess I'll do a bit of cleanup. I'll bring it down to below 90, and then it will slowly accrue until it reaches the high 90s, and then it sort of is at steady state around 92%. All right, so let's debug this issue though. All right, so this is what happened. So we were running RGI. RGI outputs this txt file and it outputs this JSON file. Both have more or less the same information, except the JSON file is annotated with external information, and that comes from the arrow ontology, and so it's convenient, but it was using up too much disk space, so I removed all of that. So let's see. All right. So in the meanwhile, we also see that there's some sort of error with the concatenation of the files. We concat. So if I do this, it's going to trigger some sort of error. Okay. Now, by the way, one of the problems here is that in the meanwhile, I'm running a bunch of these, so I'm going to, so I could kill them, but I can also create this file, __ jug please stop running.txt. So what this does is the next time that jug finishes a task, before it starts the next one, it will stop. So it does this check that the file this file exists. So it's running RGI. So there's 3 processes running RGI. I don't want to interrupt it because I don't want to be leaving partial files around or something like that. Probably will be fine, but just to be sure, let's just wait until these tasks are finished, and then eventually they will stop. All right. So I think there's a couple of different problems here that we will deal with one by one. So I think okay. Okay. So I'm gonna be, instead of doing this, I'm gonna be doing this on the shell. Oh. Okay, oops. Okay, let's see this. Can I look? I think this one is. I think this. Oops, sorry, there's a. Okay, so I think there's this one. Okay, I think the first couple we had seen this last week. So the first couple were actually they needed to be rerun anyway, and this was a different error. The error I was more interested in was this one: cannot extend append string with boolean. Oops, sorry. Okay, so this is so we have these inputs. Okay. So yeah, so this here comes at, this means that one of the jug execute processes that was running in the background now finished, because we have this file jug please stop running. So now if I do status, you will see it takes a couple of seconds, but you will see that there should be only 2 processes running instead of 3. Yes, there it is, 2 processes running. So yeah, so this is so that we can actually run things without it being too slow. Okay, so we're doing. So this is actually fs. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this Python-y thing. Yeah, so this was a tuple of size 1, and I don't want it to be the tuple of size 1, I want it to be the actual thing. Okay, so this worked. So I can load all of them, and then this is gonna fail. Yep. So I think. All right. Okay, so these 2 partials 6, let's call it A, B, partials. So A columns, B columns. So there's something here. For Okay, so actually I think this. Okay, this is okay. So the names match. The type. There will be something where the types don't match. Okay. Yep, nudged. All right, nudged is the bane of our existence. Let's see. A nudge. This is not going to work, right? This is pandas. Oh, it does. Work. Okay. So when we do the so there's some. Right, so what we want to do is we want to have nudged be a Boolean. I guess Boolean is correct. So okay, another jug execute file run ended. Okay. D types, okay. So F equals FS. Alright, so A is Boolean and B is string. And we want it to always be Boolean. So B is the one that's incorrect. So B is FS. So here we are. Yeah. Does this work? Will this? Okay. Is it this simple? That D types equals nudged? Okay, really might be this simple. Okay, one of them is still running. Oh, it's running. Prodigal. Yeah, let's. Okay. So there we go. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Yep. All right. Now it seems to be running without any errors. So this should be. See. Yeah. yeah, it ran all of them without any errors, and now that process is basically waiting for it. Okay, waiting for, so that, you know, the process has nothing to do now. So let's just touch this file, and okay. Okay, all right, so now we need to, let's merge these things. So we're gonna, I'm gonna stash the, okay, so this is, all right, so I want to get this from the log. All right, so now I'm just gonna have to do a little bit of git here. So I want to get, so I was putting the changes in this log branch, which I said we would, and the other jug is done. So which I said we would use only for, basically for keeping, you know, results that I would normally not commit to Git. I would, but, you know, so that if anyone wants to check what was done during the stream, I would commit them to this log branch, which is kind of a throwaway branch in the sense that, you know, we keep everything there, and then some of that gets promoted to main. You know, for example, here it will get promoted to main after doing a little bit of cleanup, in this case to fix that bug, and otherwise we would, yeah, otherwise we would eventually throw it away. All right, but okay, but now this is good enough for main. So what am I doing? How do I do this? So okay, so I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna cherry pick these two. Okay, and okay, so yeah, so there's many different ways in which this could have been done. So I chose to basically cherry pick the commits. So this means just take the commits out of the other branch. I just had to go get their commit IDs and then commit them in this branch, in the main branch, and then just rewriting history a bit to make them into a single commit, and then renaming that commit. And now, yeah, so now in the main branch things look much cleaner. There's a single linear commit, and actually let's, I'm gonna amend it. Okay, yeah, this is a bit, and now they also had, okay, I'm gonna remove this commits file, and I also had this Okay. So there's one, I think there's something that probably because I did not shut this down cleanly at some point, so I can do cleanup. This will remove. So Jug thinks that there's still one download genomes tasks running, but there isn't. Okay, so okay, there's nothing there. Okay, so this is now clean, and it's some of them have run. So what could we do now? So what we could do is look a little bit into the results. Let's do that. We have, let's do that maybe for 10 minutes and then we wrap up. So let's see what we have here. So could I actually just do this? Would this work? Nope. Okay, yeah, so apparently this is not. Okay, so now this works much better. Okay, so we have now. Oh, I see. There's a question. I'll answer the question in a second. So we have now changed the code for concat partial so that it outputs in XZ compression. And so the problem now is, so 147 of these tasks have already been run. So now these 147 are incorrect, right? Because they were run with the old version of the code. And so Jug, partially by design, does not check these things. I mean, we can have a very long discussion on whether it should. It's actually really, really, really difficult to do it to do it, and the only way to do it is to do it in such a way that any little change to the code, including any reordering of the code, any would trigger a change. So that's possible. I mean, you can use tools like Nix for that. Nix shares a lot with Chug, but Nix is very, very strict about it. So any change would trigger that, which often means that you might quickly have too many, and any little change would trigger a complete recomputation, and so even things that say make it a little bit faster, or if you fix a bug that only affects a small number of cases, then all of them would have to be recomputed. And so for pragmatic reasons, that it never felt like the best trade-off, but it does lead to this other situation where now, so Jug thinks that these 147 tasks have run, but in practice they were run with the old version and not the new one, and so we have to tell it that they haven't run. So this is invalidation. So we're invalidating all of these results, and in this case it really just invalidates all of these results. For example, if you invalidated the RGI, it would also invalidate, so it does the dependency. So now when we so now in this case there's nothing depends on the results of concat partials, so we just need to run it again. If we had invalidated the RGI, it would invalidate RGI, but then also the partials concatenations, because the partials concatenations use the RGI output. Right. So there's a question on the chat, which is, I cannot seem to find information on nudge data type mismatches online. This issue happens often. Is it particularly common with polars? No. Yes, this issue happens quite frequently in this type of situation, and it's not specific to polars. So let me how do I do that? So this is okay. So for example, so this is this is an issue with the TSV file. So I'm going to open here one. It's one of the offending ones. So TSV files are, right? Oops. The TSV files are effectively just text, right? Just text. So this is what the files actually are. So this is just text. So this is, so when, for example, here, this is the number. This is the character 1 followed by the character 8 followed by the character 4 followed by 8 followed by 5, right? This is the character plus. This is the character 2 followed by the character 4 followed by the character dot followed by the character 4 right? And so these are just text files, and then when they get parsed by these by polars in this case, but this is a completely generic problem, which is so for example, hit start, these are numbers, right? And we can see they are numbers, and we can see that they are numbers because because to our human eyes they are numbers with some missing elements. For example, so this is a number, so and here, for example, arrow, these are also numbers. Actually, arrows are not really numbers in the sense that we shouldn't be doing arithmetic with arrows, right? There's no, they're just identifiers, but they look like numbers. They look pretty much like numbers. Best identities is also a number. We can see that best identities is a floating point number because we have 24.41, while arrows are integers. And as I said, they're not even really integers because there's we shouldn't be multiplying them together, right? So the problem now comes when you have these files, and then what we want polars to do is, for example, to figure out that, for example, that start is an integer. So it did that. It figured out that start is an integer. And it figured that out because it read the first few rows and it basically pattern matched into, oh, these look like all integers, therefore I am going to infer that they are integers, right? And then stop the same. And this generally works quite well. There are problems, and this happens, for example, if you have a very large file, and let's say, I don't know how many columns or how many rows polars uses, but let's say uses the first 100, and then the 101th or the 101st row in the start column is something like no information available. All right. So it will use the first 100 rows and it will infer that start is a column of integers, and then it will continue and it will parse the next one, and now this no information available cannot be fit into an integer, and so it will trigger an error. So this is something that all of these tools that have to deal with TSV files, they really have to figure out a solution for this, and there's no ideal solution. Especially there's no ideal solution that really scales up well, because one way to do it is, and this was in the Polars documentation. So one way to do it is, where's 0? Infer. Yeah, okay, here it is. Oh, right, infer schema length. Right, infer schema length. So it will, one way to do it is so this is where you infer schema length, is where you tell polars how many rows to read to try to figure out which columns have which types. And so it does seem that the default is 100, but you can just say, okay, just use all the rows. So read, and that would work, and it would solve this issue where the first 100 columns look like an integer, and then the 101st breaks that assumption, and then you have an error. The problem is that this can be incredibly slow. And so in this case, what was happening is that the nudged column is a Boolean column with a lot of missing values. So in this case, oh no, that's from the other column. And there's something here that's wrong. There's some. Okay, there's something here. There's some weird thing here. Yeah, but the nudged column is a Boolean column with some. Maybe is this a problem? No. I think this is the problem that LibOffice now parsed this wrong. But I think this should be an empty value, because I think the problem is that the nudged column is empty, mostly empty, and then sometimes it will have So there was this one, and sometimes it will have a true or false. And so if we're lucky, depending on whether we were lucky, so we might get, if we get a true or false in that column, then this will enable polars to figure out, oh cool, this is a Boolean. But because that column is mostly empty, it might just happen that in some files there's no true or false in the first 100 rows, and so polars cannot correctly identify or infer the type. Oh yeah. So nudged is just a column. Yeah, it's a column. So RGI has this feature, and we can have a big debate on whether it's a feature or a misfeature, where it will nudge some hits, and which means that they were not very good hits, but they will be nudged to be good hits. And we looked a lot into this, and there's one very specific use case for this. And unfortunately, I don't think it's a very good feature, to be honest. I think I actually understand why they implemented it, but there's and going a little bit off topic, there's a little bit of a problem with incentives here, which is often users want more results. Users will ask for things, for more outputs, even if the outputs are not very good. So in this case, I think RGI was responding to user requests, which is normally a good thing to do. I'm a big believer in responding to user requests, but I think in this case, users were asked. I think the nudge results should be taken, with enough salt to cause hypertension. To be honest, unless you really follow up on them individually, and even to some extent look at the alignments and where things were in the context, etc. I really don't think you should trust the nudge results at face value. So there is a place to look at them, but it's a place where you look at them very, very skeptically. All right. So so I'm seeing the chat now. So the chat is on a delay. There's actually two delays. So the video is on a delay, and then the chat, and then the chat. I might not even see the chat immediately. This is not a polars or R or pandas. This is a very fundamental. TSV files don't have information about types, and so any of these tools has to figure out some heuristic way of trying to get the types back, recover the types, and they often, it's not like, it's one of these things where 99.9% of the time it will work perfectly, but if you work with these things a lot, then you sooner or later you run into the 0.1% where it fails, and to some extent even you run it, even the arrow numbers, they're really not numbers. They really parsing them as ints is slightly wrong, because we shouldn't be doing arithmetic, and there's no such thing as the difference between two arrow numbers, or the ratio, or you shouldn't be multiplying them together. There's figuring out which arrow numbers are prime. Anyway, so with that, I think we are. What did we add here? Okay, let's add this. No. Okay. And then, okay, so I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. So if I do jug status, it takes a while, so I can speed this up a little bit by using the cache. So this So so the first time I run it, it doesn't speed it up that much, but the next time it will be slightly faster. Yeah, and so and what that did, it was it created this file. Oops, it created this file, and so this was why I also added this file to the git ignore. So this is a Jug internal. It really doesn't do anything except speed this up, this status command. So this status command goes from goes from 5 seconds to 0.7 seconds, right? So so this actually okay, now we have a couple of extra files but no changes, so I'm just going to push this here. Let's play the outro music. And so yeah, so I'll see you all next week. I'll be, as I said, we had this big paper that we submitted last week. That was a big thing. Let's hope that the reviewers are now happy with that. And in the meanwhile, I'll probably also do some updates, and I'll see you all next week.